Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast. I'm about all things in the world of software development. I'm one of your hosts, James Montemagna, who promises not to freeze this time, Frank. This is round 2. But with me, the one, the only, the man wearing triangles for this second time that we were intro, Mr. Frank Kruger. How's it going, buddy?
Hi, James. Nice to meet you. First time listener. I hope I can get some questions in here. I'm curious to see what this podcast is all about. Yes, I'm wearing triangles. I grew up in the 90s. All cool things have triangles and geometric shapes in neon colors. That's cool. That has always been cool. That will remain cool forever. But I did this in the book.
It's very Saved by the Bell Max of you, so I like it. Funnily enough, random thought is I just watched a review for the new Geometry Wars game. I didn't even know there was a new Geometry Wars, but if you don't know Geometry Wars, I'm a huge fan. And apparently it's like super epic and it's like super changing. It's like really high energy. I think it's from some of the original creators because I think like BioWare originally made it. I think
was it BioWare?
I thought it was BioWare.
I thought it was an indie one. I'm a big fan of Geometry Wars. Like it went from I think they really nailed like. For anyone who hasn't played it, it's basically an Asteroids clone, but take Asteroids and turn it up to 1100, and that's Geometry Wars. And I thought it was like an XNA app at some point. Maybe it got bought out. I don't know. You're looking up the history now, but the game got good, and then it got crazy. Then the graphics got really good, and then it seemed like no one worked on it ever again. It was a weird development cycle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Bizarre Creations. That's correct. It started with a B, though.
Blizzard, BioWare.
The thing is, it was Microsoft Game Studios, and then it did go to Activision. So I'm just saying it's all in the wheelhouse.
Good shooter. Good 2D shooter, which had like at some level simple graphics, but at another level insane graphics because they had the first like the bombs were so powerful they created their own like gravity wells and they would like draw you in. It was just Asteroids done really well.
Yeah, I think it's not an official in the series, but it's called Sektori, Sektori, and it's basically like I think maybe it's someone that like they worked in it or something like that. But anyways, It looks like it. I was watching a video and it was all like Geometry Wars Sektori, and then like because it was set it, so I was like, oh, don't if it is Geometry Wars, but it's basically Geometry Wars, which I was a huge fan. Love it, great games. People should make more of them. It's so beautiful, lots of neon. So anyways, it's good to go. And there was a lot of triangles, lots of triangles,
exactly,
and other shapes.
Bring it
as well.
All home.
Well, also what looks like a triangle is our good friends over at Google. They got a bunch of products that they announced this week. They got the Geminis and they got the Antigravities, like gravities. There's none of them because you're levitating.
Oh, it all makes sense now. On the first Gemini spaceships, there was no gravity, but that's not anti-gravity. That's just no gravity. Someone needs to make no gravity. Well, instead, they've actually doubled the amount of gravity from what I can tell, from what I heard in all the announcements. It's gravity 2.0 plus anti-gravity 2.0. And that 2.0 isn't just a joke. There's actually 2 of them now. That's what the 2.0 means. It's 1.0 plus 1.0 equals 2.0.
3 of them. There's even...
Oh, geez. There goes the math.
Yeah, there's all the... So what I want to talk about today is the world of Windows and session management and agent management and editors and the world that we live in. I got to watch this saga. Of course, I have some inherent bias working at Microsoft and working very close to the VS Code team and the GitHub app, all these in the GitHub teams and on the CLIs and all these, Copilot stuff. But I think it's really fascinating because, a lot of people work really different. And I've been noticing how like the VS Code team works. And I think that, and the feedback from folks, and I sort of like, it's interesting being on the inside. We do like a lot of like public previews. Okay. Now it's like a public preview, but it's in insiders, but it's not really on yet. So you got to go turn on, or it's experimental and you just want to try it, but we're not going to talk about it, but just thing, I'll tell some people, and then you get some feedback and then like the product changes. And for me, as someone in advocacy, I'm just like, just release the product, right? It's kind of, but when you see like, and we do it at Microsoft, obviously, where I was like, here's a new thing, right? Just out of the blue. There's a lot of excitement because like it's here, But things take time to cook, to
Yeah.
be in the air fryer. You got to let them heat up. You got to let them cook, right? So really fascinating. Google made a stake in the ground. They said Geminis are the models, and of course, like I guess like the integrations into like Google and Gmail and all the other things.
Oh
But
gosh,
they're
you're
like
right.
coding. No, it's not Gemini. Gemini is the model for coding. Anti-gravity is the thing. We got the anti-gravity 2.0.
Ah,
We got the anti-gravity IDE. We got the anti-gravity CLI. We got the anti-gravity SDK, right? Just like we got the Claude
Copilot.
CLI, we got the
Okay,
Claude
yeah.
desktop, we got we got the agent SDK, we got the Claude, the Codex, we got the Codex CLI, we got the Codex
Actually,
integration, we got the VS Code, we got the VS Code Windows, we got the CLI, we got all the things, right? So everyone's got the thing.
I know you're a Microsoftie, but does Claude Code actually have an API and SDK? Because I wasn't even sure. They do. You think
They have,
so?
they have an agent SDK, and the agent SDK you
Okay.
use your developer API key, and then
Yeah.
your build by usage,
Okay. Gotcha.
from my
You know,
understanding.
I've been using these agent SDKs more and more. Uh, Back in the day, I was always happy to just call the model directly. But now, I mean, the standards have been raised. That's what we say every week. The standards have been raised. I'm accustomed to having access to tools. Like if I tell it to go read a file and write a file, I expect it to be able to do that. I expect it to be able to access MCP servers and all of that. And it's to the point where you kind of have to use one of these SDKs now because that expectation is just there. That the model isn't just a model; it's an agent now, and it can access all these things. So I was writing even very simple things that in the past would just use model calls and tell it, like go add 2 plus 2 for me. But now I do that through the agent SDKs. I tend to use the Copilot SDK, but I do it through the agent SDKs because inevitably I'm going to ask it to read a file and write a file. It just happens.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the SDK. In fact, I mean, you're going to see tons of it. You're already seeing a lot of it, like at you'll see it a lot of build. But you also see it like they announced like the private preview of the GitHub Copilot app, the desktop app, which leverages the Copilot SDK. The agents window leverages the Copilot SDK. The CLI, like when you go into VS Code and you select the CLI as the selection, that's just using the SDK, right? Like everything's just using the SDK under the sun. There's tons of internal tools that I'm using that are just using the SDK. I have for this podcast, I have a podcast metadata generator that takes our transcript, uses the SDK, and does a
Oh, fun.
thing. And it reads files, it does a bunch of stuff, it writes files, it does all the things for you. Now, that being said, like because I'm coding, I can also just write files too. Like I don't need it to do it. But if I needed it to, it could do
Mhm.
it, right? It has the tool selection, it can do a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. My favorite is John Galloway at work. We send all these newsletters out, like internally and onto the MVPs. And he just has, I think on his GitHub, he has like newsletter generator, and it will go like scour like releases. It'll scour release notes. It'll look at GitHub repos. It'll look at like work IQ, which is internal, like our recordings. We do these office hours internally, and like shove it all together and like generates a beautiful markdown file for him, and he writes it, and
Nice.
then he'll like have Playwright then like in from that like go and like update the newsletter and like send it out basically like all autonomous, all through the SDK, which is so cool. It's super underrated. But every time I do a presentation on it, I think people's minds are relatively blown. I've seen people do crazy stuff. Like you basically just can build your own. You can build your own VS Code if you wanted to. You can build your own anti-gravity. Like it's just there.
Yeah.
It's all just vibe coded UI for it basically.
Yeah, I did it in like a day. I even used your precious work trees. Like, here's a repo for every request I make, create a work tree, create a session, use the SDK to talk to the thinger, go off. And like, took me a day to code that. I think the joke now is like, we're going to need new abstraction levels because at first we had the model, then we had the agent, which the agent got a little vague, so we called it the harness. Then the harness got a little vague, so we just call it the SDK now. And now like everyone's creating coding things on top of all of those and creating their own harnesses. Well, it makes sense that Google is confused because we're all confused. We're playing out where these layers are and who's going to be responsible for what and all that.
Yeah, they did something really fascinating, and they got a bunch of backlash for it because they just did something. Here it is, right? And whenever you do here it is, and you move the cheese, you're like, whoa, what happened? So they did a few things that I think are of interest to talk about because inside of VS Code, we'll talk about some of the new stuff that just landed as well that are kind of complements in this world because people are working with code and they're working with agents really differently. And everyone's trying to figure it out. So everything's changing, which again, the cheese is moving all the time, right? So the Geminis are the models. Antigravity is the coding thing. So they changed the Gemini CLI to the Antigravity CLI. So it's just like
Okay.
Gemini CLI gone, done, move it over. Then, like you said, they announced Antigravity 2.0. But if you remember, Antigravity was a fork of VS Code, right?
Yeah.
And then adding on a bunch of customizations in Gemini and a bunch of like UI interactions, a bunch of like how they work, kind of like Kiro, kind of like how Cursor was, and anything like that, or the original forks. And then this new Antigravity, though, is not that Antigravity. It's a different Antigravity. Imagine you wake up one day and you open up your IDE and the IDE is gone and it's only agent session management, right? That's what they did.
Hate it.
And instead of giving you a way of getting to your code, they say go install this other application, which is the Antigravity IDE, but they don't integrate it. Now they have since fixed this. They under a week, under 5 days, under 3 days, under 3 days. They're really active on Twitter. They're addressing feedback. They now have an open an IDE button, back and forth, blah 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 blah, for it, so you can see those worlds combine, which is of interest. But I guess reading that news, someone that's been an IDE user and a code editor user for a while, like that's a pretty fundamental, crazy shift. And I remember when Cursor did this, they actually had a toggle. It was like a toggle that would just change everything back and forth to like agent first or code first. It was like code agent basically in it. So it's just really
weird.
fascinating.
Honestly, because what they're doing is they're treating the IDE as a code editor now. So it's funny, like we had IDEs, think Visual Studio. Then comes along VS Code, and they're like, "We're not an IDE, dude. We're just a code editor. We're not living that IDE life." And then VS Code got so powerful, we're like, "You're an IDE, whether you want it or not. You're an IDE." And now with the advent of agents and AI coding, we're like, "Oh, you don't need that anymore. You can just look at your sessions and you just trust it. Look at it from a functionality standpoint. You don't have to look at the code, except unless you want to do maintenance for the rest of your life, you totally got to look at the code and you got to see what mess the AI agent is making." So they're like, now they're treating IDEs, scare quotes around IDE, as code editors, even though they're IDEs. And can I remind all these people, please, that IDE means integrated development environment. The fact that you're shelling out to an IDE means it's you're missing the I in the IDE. Like, it's integrated. The debugger is integrated with the code editor, and the AI agent should be integrated with those two things. It's called integration. So I'm not a huge fan of this ignore the code world. I get the idea. I get the goal, but it's really putting the cart before the horse, because I mean, anyone who's done any serious coding with an agent knows it's going to create a spaghetti mess in 5 days of work if you're not back there pushing back a little bit on the code. It generates a little bit. It doesn't need a lot of back pressure, but it needs some back pressure. They're just not that good yet. Maybe in 5 years, but I don't know. That's why I still personally live in the VS Code world, because I like to have the code in front of me, and it's cool. I hit keep more times than not. Sometimes, like, my code review is, you only edited 20 lines, keep, fine. I don't care. But I'm personally not ready to give up the code. Not yet.
I'm attempting harder to, but people have followed my journey, and I jest all the time that, like, who cares about the code, blah, blah, blah. But, that's just me being silly because I do care about the code. I review the code. I understand the code, especially in existing projects that I have spun up. That for like, so like my cadence, my stream timer, like these other applications, my websites that I have. I'm especially when I'm adding new features, I'm reviewing the code. I just added a feature to my cadence for voice talk back, basically like 5 minutes in, tell me how fast I've been going and the time and all this stuff. And like I'm reviewing the code and understanding the code, but I'm spinning up features very fast. So I'm reviewing the code very tight. But the thing that I think I've struggled with, which is why I find, this type of experience, I think like Claude Code CLI now allows you to like manage multiple sessions inside the CLI. The Codex app lets you do this. The GitHub Copilot app, which again, it's private preview. But if you've seen videos and screenshots of it, it allows you to manage all your sessions. But I think what that app does different, which I appreciate, is it's kind of solving a problem. And a bunch of videos are on the internet, so I'm not like spoiling anything. But my normal flow has been this, Frank, is I go into VS Code usually or the CLI, and I tell the agent to do something, and it writes some code. But normally I might be working on multiple projects at the same time, like a madman. I'm just working on multiple things.
Yeah.
And not always, but sometimes. And I'll have multiple VS Codes open, or I'll have multiple CLI instances open, or I'll have a CLI working on something, the VS Code working on something. And then I'm like, okay, now, that looks good. Let's create we're in a branch. Let's push it. Let's create the PR. And then I'll do a code review. And then I'll do the code review. And then I'll pull it back down. And then like I'll review those notes. And then I'll have it review the notes, and I'll integrate it. And then I'll push and I'll do a thing. So what's fascinating, and again, I haven't used the new anti-gravity stuff or some of the other stuff we're talking about, but like I want to talk more about how we talk and work with these agents, is the GitHub Copilot app has like sort of this auto merge type of feature, that when agent merge, that gets you kind of to that point with working with the agent, reviewing the code. You can say, do what I just do with one button click. It'll do all of that for you. And that's pretty cool. And you're working with the difference is that you're working across all of your repos and all of your projects. And when you're with the GitHub Copilot app, or you're in a Codex app, or you're in something that there is no code editor, you shell out to the code editor, right? So like inside the VS or the GitHub Copilot app, or let's say T3 chat, or like inside of like, or T3 code, and like some of the other, agent session management will be like open in VS Code, open in Cursor, open in whatever, right? So you can then get to the code. So it's like a code second, right? Where VS Code is inherently code first, agent integrated there, zoom out to it. So I find that really fascinating. But I just did a stream with the VS Code team all about the agents window, right? So there's on the top right in VS Code, there's this open in agents. And this, for all intents and purposes, is very similar to what the new Antigravity app is, or the Codex app, or the Cursor agent app, or these other things, which is you're working with a bunch of agents. Let me go work with all of my agents, no matter where they're running, what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're working with this, it's working in the CLI or in the cloud, or it's working, with different agents basically on your machine or somewhere else in the cloud. And you can see all of your different repos on the left-hand side. You can click around, and those are the same sessions that we're running in VS Code. So you can click on them, you can review them. You have a terminal. All of your run commands work, so you can see it. You can see the integrated terminals, the integrated browser. All of your skills, instructions, all that stuff pops up, right? So that's really nice from a zoom out. And why like this is on an ultra wide, I can put my agents window on the left, and then I can put my VS Code on the right. And then I can work on my code. But if I have an idea, I don't need to like boot up a bunch of VS Codes, open the workspace, do a thing. I can agent session manage it, right? And then the other thing it lets me do is very similarly, is it helps me streamline that process of, okay, I have the code. Let me go ahead and create the pull request. You can do a code review, and it does one locally. You can provide feedback. The cool part about this flow is that you can like give feedback on the code in real time. And again, maybe the other code editors do this, but one thing I really like about it that VS Code doesn't do, maybe they just add it, or maybe it's in there somewhere. But let's say there is code changes, right? And you see the files that have changed. Right now, what do? You say, oh, actually, I don't want you to add 2 + 2. I want you to add 4 + 4, blah, 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 in this file, right? And you'll go tell it to do it and go figure it out what you meant, do this. But what you can do is you can like look at the code, and you can just add a comment to the code. So you can make comments on the code, and you can say apply comments, and it'll go execute your feedback. as if you're code reviewing in real time. And I was like, oh, that's really
nice.
clever. That's really
Yeah.
clever. So the ways of which I'm working is like, I don't think there's one right way or wrong way. I find myself being in VS Code more personally and using sessions on occasion when I'm working across multiple code bases. But I haven't given in yet to that because, like you're saying, it's like in VS Code, the agent is there, right? It's only when I really want to work on multiple projects and I still have session management for that project. It's when I'm working on multiple projects all at once. And that's where I think these session management tools get really fascinating. But not everyone's living that, right?
Yeah.
Every single day.
Well, and you can get a little bit scatterbrained too. Like, in honesty, I'll work on iCircuit and Kelka at the same time because I can handle those two. I know the code bases so well. But like, once you start doing like 3 different projects or 4 different projects, 5 different, I don't know how you could possibly focus on anything. Like, your attention is just not there. But so that's my little caveat. I am actually trying to move more toward this session oriented style, but I have a slightly different reason why. It's not necessarily the multitasking, but that obviously helps. It's more the balance between what's happening on my dev machine versus what's happening in the cloud, the cloud.
Yes.
Because yeah, there's only so much I can multitask with on my dev machine, but if my favorite flow is, assign an issue to a thing and it's cranking on it and I'm doing code reviews with it, or an idea pops into my head, I can start up another session, but I don't really want to devote my dev machine to it. I don't want to corrupt my crazy Git on my own machine because it's already a delicate balance of insanity. I can just say, start with a fresh copy and start working on this one idea in the cloud. So I like these session-based UIs because I think I'm personally trying to embrace cloud-based AI agent stuff more. For the James thing of working on projects from the airport, that's a big reason for doing trips and not having to make sure my dev machine is all set up the way my dev machine needs to be. I can just pick up any cold computer or a friend's computer or my iPhone and be like, oh, here's all my agents, go do a code review, comment on this thing. Yes. And that's the UI I actually prefer, but I've been doing it through like the github.com interface and actual pull requests. So any UI that streamlines that process, I'm actually really here for. I will critique your 2-window setup though. Sessions on the left, code on the right, your kind of code diff that all these tools give you. They don't give you a code editor, but they give you the code diff, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I do wish they integrated the previews a bit more. Like, it wasn't just a few months ago we started getting the integrated browsers. And I think that was a real nice feature of the original Antigravity IDE, was that like it would show you your running website as it's editing it. And all the good online tools have done this too. Like all the no code tools have been doing this for a while now. Show me the stupid app, like if I'm working on an iOS app, run the simulator and put it in there. This isn't rocket science. We know how to launch the simulator. We know how to do screen captures of Windows on Mac. Like, just put it there and let me see you working on it. Because I guess if you're just working on like boring backend stuff and API junk, it doesn't matter. But most of us are writing like real apps that have real user interfaces. And in the end, like, I care what the code quality is, but more importantly, I care what the user interface is and what am I presenting to the user and how are they giving input and all that. I think that's the difference between someone who cares more about the code and someone who's like us and is an app developer. I'm not writing this stuff for myself. I'm writing it for other people that need to use my code, my someone's code, my app. And so like the app is what's important and the code is secondarily important and the sessions are tertiary to all that. So I don't know. I want to see more emphasis on the app actually running.
Yeah, I do think that's the next. I was talking to the VS Code team and we were going through this agents flow, and one thing that I think is nifty about it is that a lot of that integration that is there from VS Code is there. So the browser there and all your tools are there and all the MCPs are there, and it can show up in line in it. But I agree with you. I think that the web is there, which is great.
Yeah.
But then what about some of the other things? Maui Devflow is something I need to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to play around with. I was just using Xcode and the GitHub Copilot stuff inside of there, and now Xcode
Mhm.
has an MCP server in it, so like it can connect automatically to and get official tools and all this other stuff, which is really nice. But yeah, I'm like thinking about that. How does that work with agents, right? Because you're saying it's right. It's like I can see the code, I can maybe run the thing, I have a terminal, but how do I, at that point, then maybe I just jump back into VS Code, right? Now,
Exactly.
the one nice thing I will say about the agent sessions window, and again, maybe this is how Antigravity works as well. But when you're working with workspaces or work trees, this thing is a game changer because when you're working with work trees, the problem with VS Code is that it's a workspace, right? So you have to open the work tree. So you'd have a bunch of instances with it, and it's kind of hard to manage. It's a little unruly. So the one nice thing that I like is that if you are in VS Code and you open the agents window and you spin off and you open a work tree, there is a open an editor button. And when you open an editor, that will open that work tree automatically for you for that
Yeah.
session. And like it'll
Mhm.
have it super localized. So that makes it really nice because often I am losing my mind, which is okay, where are my work trees? Where are the sessions are localized for that work tree, not necessarily for the project
Yeah.
sometimes. So it's like a little bit chaotic. So this makes it really nice to really like focus down into it and then see all your sessions together in one place. Um, but
Yeah.
I
Mm,
agree. I think that is definitely next generation needs to focus more on the UI bits and pieces. That's for sure.
yeah. And that work tree abstraction, it's I don't like it because it's a little bit messy on my dev machine. But
Yeah.
I do like the isolation it provides, work on one branch, per request. That's totally cool by me. Then you can actually work on multiple things at once.
Agreed.
Where I get a little bit annoyed with these session-based apps is they take that idea and go a little bit too far. Some of them start like sandboxing your app and running it in like a constrained container. It may not be like a Docker container, but like in a constrained environment where it's not using any of your dev tools on your machine, and it has to be Linux compatible. This is my constant gripe I have with all these tools is they're so Linux obsessed. It works great on the web, but it's pretty useless for doing Mac development whenever they do this sandboxing stuff. So this whole sessions based thing, it's just a UI switch. It's just here's how we're going to present the information with a different user interface. It's all the
Yep.
same information.
Totally.
The difference is like, is it running in the cloud? Is it running on my dev machine? Is it running in my Git checkout, or is it running on some work tree thing that you created? And now the new aspect to all that is it running in some silly sandbox because y'all took it too far.
Yeah.
You're not you're losing the goal here. Um,
Well, I think
th-
that the new cool thing, in my opinion, as well,
mhm,
that I've seen in the agents window specifically, that is a little bit different, is they have the ability now to do subsessions. So when you're working on a session, you're working on something, often you need to either spin up a brand new session that doesn't have the context of that session,
mhm,
right? If you want to work on two things at once. Um, um, but now you can have a session and you can say create a sub session, which will basically snapshot where you're at. And then you'll have tabs up top. So here's a session and there's a bunch of agents running all in this work
interesting.
tree or all here, but it'll have the context of what's going on. And there's one main orchestrator. So whenever you're, the sub agent, the sub session finishes, all the changes are back in the main session. So that's really really cool. So for example, a great example of this was I was using my Tiny Tooltown sample basically, which is
Mhm,
the tinytooltown.com from Scott Hanselman. And they have this demo flow, which is, oh, go add a count up timer or count up display to show how many tools are there. So I add it. And then on the main session, I'm like, hey, can you go like when the user scrolls down and it counts up, can you add a little bit of confetti? So it's like, wee, fun. And then I was like, oh, you know what? We should also add this control on another page, on the browse page. So instead of just waiting for that to get done, I just clicked sub session, which is inside the work tree. And then I said, hey, with the context of everything that's there with all the changes, can you go add it to the search page? And then it did it, and then it was done. It's like, cool, I'm done. And then it, just all put it back together. So it's similar to just spinning up another session, but it's like, hey, I'm working on these features and I'm having different agents all run together on it, and they're kind of being orchestrated together. Or it seems like it, at least. It's kind of
branches of branches, work trees of branches of work trees.
Sessions and forks.
It can get a little bit confused. And then there's 12 sub agents running, and then I moved it off to the cloud, and now I brought it back to my dev machine. Yeah,
this is true.
It gets a little bit confusing, to be honest. But I totally get wanting to capture the context. That makes a lot of sense. I wish a lot of these interfaces treated the context a little more delicately. Like it's good information here, it's important information. I would like, there's always, start a new conversation from this point in the context. And I think that that's a powerful feature that I know I myself do not use enough. Where like you've had to go do a whole bunch of research. It knows a lot of things. The context window is at 120,000 tokens. It's read every single file in the repo. It'd be good to kind of like freeze that context and be like, okay, here's now 6 things I want you to do with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do think that's a good point. They do have like a fork. You can like, once anything is done, you can fork a conversation. So if you did a bunch of research, you can like create a bunch of forks of it. So you go do a bunch of things off of it, which is kind of fascinating too.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the last thing that I want to talk about is like, these are all really fascinating things. And I think all of these agent sessions and code editors and integrations are going to continue to evolve as like the agents evolve and like the SDKs evolve and how we work with them are different. But I think the final thing that I think is really fascinating that we showed off in that live stream that kind of applies to you because you're about to do a road trip is, inside of the CLI, the GitHub Copilot CLI, there's a /remote command. And the /remote command allows you to create a remote session that you can access from like the GitHub mobile app or from github.com. So why is that important? Well, because if you're using the cloud agent, you are confined to a cloud environment, as you said, Frank, right? Like a little Linux box that's runner that's up there. The difference is if you wanted to work on iCircuit, you can say /remote, and then it legitimately is like running your CLI. You have access to your CLI anywhere in the world on your machine with your tools, have it do whatever you want, right?
Good call. So, thanks. I needed to know that. That's a pro tip.
Now, did you know, Frank, that there is a feature in VS Code? So there's 2 things here. One, did you know that there's a feature in VS Code itself called tunnels?
I feel like we've talked about it on the podcast before, so my answer is going to be yes, of course I know, James. But could you refresh my memory about what tunnels is, please?
Okay. On the bottom left, there's this little greater than, less than little connector. And that's usually where you connect to a dev container or to a code space, or to SSH. You can as SSH there. But there is this thing called tunnel. And tunnel allows you to create a tunnel to your machine, a dev tunnel that you can then open anywhere in the world at vscode.dev. And at vscode.dev, you can then connect to the dev tunnel and get all of your VS Code available to you from the browser, which is crazy. And I had no idea even existed. It's just like there. And I don't even know how long it's been there for, but I will say that I'm going to look here on VS Code and I'm going to open up this video from Reynold from 1 year ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's called Access Your Computer Anywhere with VS Code, no VM needed. Now, here is the crazy part about all of this, is that you now can actually open the agents window and connect and create a tunnel from there. So you can do in the CLI or just at your terminal, you can say code tunnel. It'll create a tunnel. And then if you go to vscode.dev/agents, you get the agent window and you can connect to your tunnel. So instead of just like working with one CLI, you can work with every single agent, every single thing on your machine, anything that you want, basically. Anything that you could do on your machine, you are on your machine but you can do it there. And then the team, though, here's the crazy part, Frank. The team created a mobile optimized, like responsive website. So if you go to vscode.dev/agents on your phone, it is a mobile friendly version of the agents window, giving you access to everything. And this is like in the release notes. It's in stable. It's there. And like nobody knows. We're doing a video on it like next week, but I'm just going to highlight. You can watch it. You can watch the last live stream of Let It Cook from last week or whatever. But yeah, it's wild.
I need to tell you, I feel really embarrassed now because I knew the term was familiar. James, can I tell you, I am an active user of tunnels. I just totally forgot that that's what the feature name is. I think we might have talked about it on the podcast before, where I have my robotic lawnmower, and
Yes.
Coding on it is a real pain in the butt. So I learned, it's a little Raspberry Pi, by the way. I learned that I could install VS Code Tunnel on the little Raspberry Pi. And now from any browser, I can basically log into the machine. I'm putting scare quotes up if you're listening on the podcast. You're not logging into the machine. Whatever. It's doing SSH magic. And it's great because like literally in Vision Pro in VR, I can bring up a browser window, look at my robot, and be coding the robot while looking at the actual physical robot with like no screens or anything like that. I found it is the premier way to do development on remote machines. Now, I actually do SSH remote VS Code stuff too, but this tunnel thing is really hard to beat because it forwards so much stuff. In the end, it feels about the same, but the beauty is on the machine that you're using, you don't have to have VS Code installed. You just have to go to the website. It spins up a web version of VS Code, which is basically VS Code, and then it connects to that machine in a lot of the same feeling way as the SSH stuff. So I am an active user of tunnels. Now, what I didn't know was, and it never occurred to me because I'm an idiot, all this agent stuff could work through that too.
Yeah, totally.
It just didn't occur to me. I'm like, of course they made that work because it's Microsoft. They're thorough. So that's super cool. I will have to get a tunnel going on my machine. No one hack me. B, start practicing with it more to get a good feel for it. It's tricky because, I don't mind installing VS Code. It's easy to install, but it's just having that. It's the permissions and the port forwarding and all that nonsense. Like connecting to SSH to my own machine is a pain in the butt, but somehow through the magic of very smart engineers, they just made this tunnel thing work, which is really cool.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, it's just bananas. So anyways, what this comes down to is Google did a bunch of crazy stuff, which is really fascinating and like really interesting to like watch and learn on the internet. And at the same time, a bunch of crazy stuff has been happening all around us all at once. It's just been features rolling into products, right?
Yeah.
And as we learn more and as we interact, we're changing how we work with code. We're changing how we work with agents. And even like where and how we do this stuff is really bananas. Because I always joked, like I would write tons of code just on my phone, right? Just go to the GitHub app, spin up all these agents, do a bunch of stuff. But now I have access to my real machines. I have access to my real SDKs. I have access to all this stuff if I want to from anywhere in the world to work on any of my projects at any time and manage all of them really seamlessly, but still get access to the code, still do all the things. And I have access to all that because of all of these tools like integrating together. There's the integrated part of it. The integrated
are they
environments in a way. Well, it's a lightweight code editor. It's a lightweight code editor, Frank.
Is it? No. It's not so lightweight anymore. I hear it can do internet tunneling.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I feel a little awkward. I feel a little bit like Steve Jobs, where I'm like, is this session-based UI? Is that a feature or an app? And we're living in the months right now where people have decided it's an app and we got to rewrite all our apps because the UI has switched. To me, it's just another UI. I'm like, okay, it's just put that UI into your app. That's why I kind of prefer, I wish it was just a window in VS Code. I get it. Like VS Code is so workspace oriented, that they probably felt constrained by the VS Code design. And that's why they decided they had to have a separate app. But I feel a lot like Steve Jobs. It's a feature, not an app. His old critique of Dropbox. But he was proven wrong. I could be proven wrong. And obviously, Google thinks that they're different enough, and that's why they're messing around. But they got pushback. I'll just say what I say every week. It's the Wild West out there. We just got to keep up. Keep seeing these crazy apps these big companies are releasing, and see which ones fit what we enjoy in our own workflows. Yeah.
I think use what makes you happy. When I just did the VS Code or the GitHub Copilot dev days, it was basically that. I was just like, we have this, we have that, we have these things. And I was showing them how they all work together, right? Like you said, going from the cloud, pulling it down, it's like, relatively seamless, going from my phone, remoting a session. But like, use the tools and do the things that make you happy, that make sense in your workflow. And at the end of the day, that's actually the thing that actually matters the most. But they're all available there for you, right? I think that's the kind of fascinating part, is like they're there, and use the things. But I know one thing is a lot of people don't know that all this stuff is available. Yeah. Like I'm just still learning about stuff of features that have been in the product for a year plus or whatever. You know what I mean? So there's that aspect of it. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we use them and integrate into our flow, the more interesting they get. So, well, Frank, I think that's going to do it. I am apologizing to our YouTube listeners because apparently I've been frozen. I didn't even see the Zencaster recording. I guess I should have plugged my cam link directly into my Mac and not in the hub, but that is a bummer. But I've been frozen, so I'm going to, I guess.
But you did promise not to freeze. It's. I feel like you're just breaking promises, James.
I did. I guess I'm going to edit this video. It stinks that this is Sunday night, but I guess I'm going to edit this video and just put my face, picture of my face. So sorry for people that apparently I froze like 5 minutes into this recording. So
we could just do B-roll of puppy dogs playing in a field, and that can be your avatar for this episode.
Perfect. There you go. I will do my best. It'll probably be the best episode. I'm sure like the YouTube algorithm will optimize that. So, all right. Well, Frank, thanks so much for letting us talk about, I don't know. We talked about stuff. I don't know what we talked about. Things.
Session-based UIs. That's
Session-based UIs. Session-based UI controversy 2026.
I'll let you know what we were talking about, James. I know you've been frozen over there. I'll catch you up with what's been going on here.
Well, on that note, I guess that's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next week, this is one of your agent sessions spinning off into the ether. I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger, your other session spinning off into the universe, hopefully to finish at some point before your credits are run out. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.